Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Yishkolim, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishna Dalet, Mishnah 4. The previous Mishnah had mentioned that a Kohen has to give a half shekel, but we don't force him to. We don't take collateral from him to make sure that he does it. Now, this Mishnah is going to go back on that topic about whether a Kohen is obligated to give a half shekel. Rabbi Yehuda said, Hayed ben Bukhri b'Yavna. There was a sage named Ben Bukhri, and he testified. Testified means that he was saying something that had already been said previously by earlier sages, and he was now saying it over. He was now relating it to the other sages in Yavna. Yavna was where the Sanhedrin, the high court of the Jewish people, was situated after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. It was no more in Yerushalayim; it was in Yavna. And Ben Bukhri testified the following: that was the statement. The statement that he had received was that any Kohen that gives a shekel does not sin. Follow that? A Kohen who gives a shekel does not sin. That doesn't mean a Kohen has to give a shekel. That sounds like if he gives a shekel, it's okay. I might have thought it's not even okay for him to give a shekel. And the answer is no, it's okay. So according to this statement, what does it mean? It means the following. It means, number one, that a Kohen is not obligated to give the half shekel. The question is, if a Kohen decides that he wants to give voluntarily, is that a problem? What should be the problem? The thing is like this. When you're dealing with karbanis tzibur, the communal sacrifices from which the half a shekel was given to purchase, when it comes to a communal sacrifice, you cannot have somebody dedicating today's communal sacrifice. Like, they didn't have today's daily morning sacrifice has been sponsored by so-and-so. It doesn't work that way. You can't have a private person paying for it. You can't have a private person giving the animal for it. It's a communal sacrifice. It has to come from the community. So an individual person can't do it. So the thought would be, one might think, if a Kohen gives a half shekel and he's not obligated, so it's a voluntary donation. If it's a donation, then in his mind, what he's giving is, okay, this is my donation towards the communal sacrifices. That's not good. We can't have private donations towards communal sacrifices. That doesn't work. So you might have thought that it would be wrong for him to actually give a half shekel if he's not obligated. So on that, Ben Bukhri said that the sages said, no, it's okay. He doesn't sin by doing that. He doesn't make anything worse. He doesn't make anything worse. Why? Because the assumption is that when the Kohen gives his half shekel, it's not like, okay, this is my donation towards that. It's my money I'm giving towards that. A private person giving towards that. But rather, when he gives his half shekel, he's giving it towards, it's not part of the communal funds. It's part of the communal funds. It's not like I'm sponsoring it. It's not like I'm donating it. I'm donating the sacrifice. I'm not just donating this money, my money. I take this money and I say, this money, this half shekel belongs completely to the communal funds, just like everybody else. It's not like my contribution. We don't look at it as my contribution towards the communal sacrifice, but rather it's like everything else. Everybody else gives a half shekel. It goes to a communal fund. The communal fund now is what's used to purchase the animals. When he gives the half shekel, he's not trying to be different than anybody else. He is just making that money part of the communal funds, like all the half shekalim, and therefore it's not a private donation towards the communal sacrifices. It's a donation towards the communal fund from which the communal sacrifices are offered from, and that's okay. That's good. So therefore, Ben Bukhri's statement clearly was saying that a Kohen is not obligated to have to give the half shekel, but it's okay if he does. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan, the sage, Rabbi Yochanan, the son of Zakkai, said to Ben Bukhri, "Loiki, not so. No, you've got it wrong. The statement was not like what you said. Ella, kol kohen she'eino shekel chayte. Rather, the statement was any Kohen that doesn't give a half shekel is a sinner. If you don't give, you sin. That means you have to give it. That was the statement. Ella, rather, where did it come about, this mistake about the fact that Kohanim aren't obligated? Ella she'kohanim darsh mikros ela atzman. The Kohanim used to interpret the following verse for themselves. meaning they had a drasha, they had an argument, they had they considered they had a scriptural basis to be able to say that they're exempt. But it was, but deep down it was a interpretation. It was really for their own benefit. This is a pasuk in the Torah. Any mincha, any meal offering of a kohen is completely burned. It's not eaten. When we deal with menachas, which means a meal offering, that means you're talking about you bring flour, you mix it with oil, you take up a certain amount of it, the kamitza, you throw that on the altar. The rest of it is eaten by the kohanim. That's how a typical mincha works. A private mincha can work that way. A communal mincha can work that way. At the same time, if a kohen offers a mincha, private kohen offers a mincha, brings a mincha offering. He offers a mincha. His is different, completely burnt. It doesn't come out by a mincha brought by a kohen that part of it goes onto the mizbeach, the rest of it is eaten by kohanim. A kohen brings a mincha, completely burnt. That's the rule. If so, on that they said, being that the Omer offering was a meal offering of barley, second day of Pesach, that was offered. That was a communal offering. The Shtei Halechem, the 2 loaves of bread that were brought on Shavuos, together with 2 lambs, 2 lambs or 2 rams, 2 lambs, 2 lamb offerings. And these 2 breads were baked. They were waved together with the lambs. They did the tenufa, the waving that's done with it. After the lambs were offered, the bread was eaten by the kohanim. Those 2 breads. Or the lechem apanim. Lechem apanim are the breads that were arranged on the golden table in the Beis Hamikdash in the temple. They were put there on Shabbos. They stay there for a week. The next Shabbos, they're replaced by new ones. The old ones, which again roughly stay fresh for a whole week, were eaten by the Kohanim. So the Kohanim argued, being that with our contribution of a half shekel, it comes out that the Omer, the Shtei Halechem, and Lechem Apanim are ours. We have a portion in it. How can they be eaten? They're now the Mincha B'Kohen. If they're all now a Mincha B'Kohen because they have a portion in it, how can they be eaten? Must be that we're not supposed to be giving the half shekel towards those communal sacrifices, and that's why they can be eaten. That was their basis to say that they are exempt, but they were wrong. That interpretation was incorrect, because when the Torah says that any mincha of a kohen is burnt and not eaten, that's when it comes only from a kohen. If it's a kohen's personal mincha, he's the only owner of this mincha, that's when we say it's burnt. But if he's together with other people who aren't kohanim, then this rule doesn't apply. So therefore, their whole basis for saying that they were exempt from the half a shekel was mistaken. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, that's why he said the statement is not what you said, Ben Bukhari, that they're exempt. They're obligated. If they don't give, they're sinning. The thing is that there was this assumption by the Kohanim that they were exempt from giving the half shekel based on this argument that they made. But it wasn't correct. It wasn't a correct argument. And therefore, the Kohanim are obligated to give the half shekel. It's just that, as we said in the previous Mishnah, they give the half shekel, but if they don't give it, we're not going to force them. We're not going to take collateral from them and force them to give it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a kohen